what Eritrea's interest might be in this conflict, and also what the far-reaching impacts of this war would be to the stability and security of the Horn of Africa. I think we have to remember that since Abiy assumed power, he teamed up with Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea as well as Farmajo of Somalia in order not only to subjugate the people's rights of self-determination, but also to configure or to change the state-building process in these three countries. But all three of them, they have envisioned a country where their dominance will be pronounced through establishment of a unitary state, a state that doesn't necessarily recognize the innate differences nation and nationalities as well as ethnic groups in all the countries might have, but force them to forgive their rights of determination and consolidate or form a central government that will exclusively be led by a single man, as it is the case in most African countries. So I think at the root cause or the main interest of the Eritrean government, apart from this narrative of Eritrea having long-lasting problem with the TPLF, I think it is their innate or its unwavering desire to have an Africa that is known for the formation of a unitary state and not necessarily a federal government. Because what you see, the common thing in Ethiopia is that Ethiopia is the coming together of different nations and nationalities. So these nations and nationalities have had their constitutional or their democratic right enshrined in the Ethiopian constitution to self-administration. What this does in effect is give the nations and nationalities certain level of rights that cannot be overridden by the federal government. So in order to completely change this state formation process and introduce a new governance structure, the Ethiopian government teamed up with Eritrea as well as Farmajo, and that's why they waged the genocidal war against the people of Tigray, because Tigray was the lasting region in Ethiopia that could actually withstand such kind of attempt and continue to advocate for a multinational federalism that is also widely supported by other Ethiopians. But unfortunately, the Ethiopian government under Abiy Ahmed's leadership have used its state apparatus to effectively destroy any type of resistance. The far-reaching impact of this conflict on the Horn of Africa has been greatly discussed by everybody, but I also wanted to highlight the fact that Ethiopia has been the beacon of hope to other neighboring Africans, particularly those in the Horn of Africa, during the leadership of the TPLF and other coalition parties that made up the EPRDF. So all the great things we know about Ethiopia, the very successful counter-terrorism mission that was led against Al-Shabaab and others, the fact that Ethiopia has been the largest troop contributor to the UN's peacekeeping efforts, all of these things have been achieved through the leadership of not only of the PLF, but also because of its leadership. So it is this kind of political party, it's this kind of region that is now being dehumanized and being painted as a force that is out to take out African liberty. So I just wanted to highlight that. Coming back to your question of hate speech, this is something that every Tigrayan has experienced, not only after the beginning of the genocidal war, but even before that. As I said, right after Abiy came to power, he normalized violation of human rights across the country. There have been multiple incidents where members of different ethnic groups have been attacked in different parts of the country, and the Ethiopian government has failed. The Ethiopian government, as well as its judiciary institutions, have failed to carry out independent investigations that will find out the real perpetrators of different crimes and hold them accountable. What they did instead is that, without any due legal process, they labeled the Tigrayan leadership and by implication the people of Tigray, and used very, very dehumanizing language, including calling the people of Tigray daytime hyenas, and all of these documentaries and all of this hateful rhetoric wasn't only being pushed on social media, but also on national TV that normalized the very staggering level of hate speech that we witnessed since the beginning of the war. They have called us cancers that need to be weed out. They have called us children that bite their mom's breast that fed them. They have called us so many dehumanizing terms that made it okay for ordinary members of the Ethiopian National Army, the Amhara Fano, and other militant groups to kill their neighbor, or to inform on their neighbor and have them arbitrarily detained and taken to concentration camps. So the dehumanizing language was not only being pushed by activists or ordinary Ethiopian citizens, but also by members of the Ethiopian government, including the chief advisor. Most of the hate speeches are pushed in local languages, particularly Amharic, but the impact of this dehumanizing word has been seen in the levels of crime that has been justified against the people of Tigray. While we're hopeful and encouraged by the UN Human Rights Council report that actually admitted hate speech has played a very important role in exacerbating the problem, I think we continue to call upon media, social media, that are being actively used by activists and government advisors to spread hate. You would have multiple and endless videos on YouTube that call for the complete annihilation and extermination of Tigrans by using hate speech. You would have tweets coming from members of the government, their activists and propagandists that continue to utilize hate speech. And we continue to report this, rhetoric, this very hateful language, because we wanted our best to minimize the level of suffering that the people endure. But these media outlets are failing to take proper action. For example, one of the government representatives might send a very hateful tweet today, we report it and it gets down, but the next morning you will have the same language being used, because that's primarily because the social media platforms are not introducing a structure that would prevent hate speech from being used against ethnic minorities. So media to push hate against the people of Tigray.